Hi everybody, I'm Kevin. Welcome to this episode of How Do I Do? In this episode, we'll be talking about how to change a fuse in a microwave. Why would we need to change a fuse in a microwave? Well, microwaves are high-power machines that require a lot of electricity. Sometimes when you're using them for long periods of time, the heat builds up inside and sometimes the fuse just happens to blow. It's pretty inconvenient, but I'll show you a nice safe way to take the fuse out and replace it. So in order to change the fuse, there's a few tools we're going to need. We're going to need a couple of handheld screwdrivers, and that's really about all you need. The best way to take the microwave apart is, of course, to consult your user manual. But if the user manual is no longer available, I'll show you how to take it apart and to find the fuse so you can change it. Okay, so I just want to share with you the symptoms of a blown fuse in a microwave. Sometimes the microwave is just working fine. It's just doing its thing. It's heating your food or whatever. But sometimes when you're using it for a long period of time, the heat builds up inside. Fuses inside there are heat-based devices which will eventually melt and blow when the current gets too high. When the current flows through them, it creates heat. Also, as you're cooking, that creates heat. If you don't have the proper ventilation, sometimes the heat builds up around the fuse and it blows prematurely. So I'm going to show you kind of what happens when a microwave fuse blows, kind of like what happens here. Okay, so now you can see that the microwave's dead. It is completely unresponsive. The panel is dark. Nothing happens when you press any of the buttons. When you open the door, the light does not come on. You can tell that it's still plugged in the back here, but nothing's happening. So obviously there's a problem somewhere. The first thing that I would suggest that you check is go downstairs or to your circuit breaker panel and make sure that all the breakers are on and you didn't trip the breaker. That'd be the first thing to check. And if you've checked to make sure it's plugged in right and the breaker's not tripped, chances are the fuse is blown. And I'm going to show you how to replace that fuse. Okay, so to replace the fuse in the microwave, it's going to take probably about 20 minutes if you have a very successful first try at it. There's a few screws you're going to have to take out. You'll need a screwdriver. Safety first. This is an electrical device. It's got electrical components that store energy inside of it. So it's very important that you wait at least 5 minutes before you take anything apart on that microwave. So the first thing to do is take all the stuff out of the inside of it so that you don't break anything. That means whatever food you were cooking, that means taking out the turntable. That'll fall down and break. And also take out the carrier ring that's in there. Once you got everything out of the inside of the microwave, now you can take it out of the cabinet or wherever it is. Firstly, by unplugging it. Now careful that cord doesn't catch on something when you're carrying it and then you trip or catch something and break something. You want to make sure you're hanging on to that cord. And then you take it to a nice clean workspace where you can work on it properly with lots of good lighting and lots of good space where you can turn it around and look at all the different sides of it. Okay, so I just want to explain what kind of work surface you need to prepare for changing a fuse in a microwave. You shouldn't cramp yourself because you're going to need lots of room. It's a big device and you need lots of space. So the workspace that I prepared here, you'll see I laid out some cardboard so you don't scratch either the microwave on the surface or you don't ruin the surface of your cupboards or countertops that you have there. I have my tools set out here. You just need, I think, a couple of hand screwdrivers, and really that's all you need for the microwave. Okay, so we have the microwave here. It's been unplugged for quite some time. Remember I said that the components inside store electricity, so we don't want any electric shock here. So if you have the user manual, that would be very handy to use to get it taken apart. If you don't, well, it's somewhat intuitive. Usually this upper cabinet here, the outside cabinet, you'll notice is kind of like a skin that wraps around the microwave. Now this is the back side of the microwave, and you'll see that the skin is screwed in here with screws around the perimeter. And that's an indication that that's what has to come off. Also on the side here there's a screw, and on this side there is no screw. So keep inventory of where the screws are, and don't work too fast, and don't forget it's good to stay nice and organized. So the first thing is to remove the screws from the cabinet. They're not very big, so don't lose them. All the way around the perimeter. Sometimes they're specialized screws, so you need the specialized screwdriver to fit in there. Okay, so take these screws. You just have to get them loose, and then you can probably take them out with your fingers. And remember, we're just taking the screws out around the perimeter of this outer skin here. Okay, so after we get all of the screws out from around the perimeter, like we said, and off the sides, just test the edges here and see if they come free. Now this side does not come free, which tells me there's a screw under the microwave which is holding this panel on. So what we have to do is very carefully rotate the microwave from the bottom onto its side, and now we'll see if there's any other screws on the bottom, which doesn't look like it is, so it looks like it's just friction fit on there. Okay guys, so you can see that there are no screws on the bottom here, but sometimes what's fancy about these things is that you have to get them loose from the back first. Pull out the back flaps like this. Let's put it back on its feet so I can show you this properly. But if you get the back flaps open first and then lift up on the cover, both sides, make sure it's out and lift up, it kind of tips up and away from the front of the microwave. Okay, so then sometimes there's a bit of a pull. Just disengage it from the front. It comes loose from the front like that, and the cover comes off. Set that aside. And now you have access to the inside of the inside electrical components of the microwave. Again, make sure that everything's de-energized and that the capacitors are probably discharged, 5 minutes minimum, and immediately you can see the fuse. So here we are inside the microwave, and immediately you can see the fuse right there. And you will not know if that fuse is blown unless you test it. So the only way you can really test that is with a multimeter. And the only way you can test it is to take it out of the fuse holder. So these little clips here is what holds this fuse inside. And the best way to get that out is, first of all, with a designated fuse puller, which I don't have available here, but the best way is just slip a tiny little screwdriver under the fuse and press up lightly and just pop it out of the fuse holder on one side and then on the other side, just like that. Now don't scratch the caps of the fuse too much with the screwdriver, and I'll tell you why. Because on the cap of this fuse there's writing, and it's very important that you look at that writing. Just give it a little wipe and have a look at it. It tells you the ratings of the fuse. On here, I don't know if you can see that. I'll hold it in the light. But I believe that says 20A, which means that's a 20 amp fuse. And if you rotate it, yeah, that's 20 amp. So on the other side, usually it tells you the voltage level, I don't see it on here. And sometimes it'll say right on the microwave circuit board itself what kind of fuse it is. This just says special fuse. Now, generally these are ceramic fuses. They're 1 1/4 inches long by 1/4 of an inch in diameter. And you can get these virtually anywhere. I've seen them in Canadian Tire, I've seen them in Home Depot. What's important about the fuse is that you don't exceed the current rating of 20 amps. So this microwave is plugged into a 120 volt wall outlet. That means that the fuse should be 120 volt, 20 amp. Now, if it was plugged into a 240 volt outlet, you'd need a 250 volt fuse. Now, you can use the 250 volt fuse in a 120 volt circuit. That's not a problem. Just do not exceed the current rating, because this wiring is only rated for that rating of fuse. Okay, so we have the new fuse here, and I've got this one from Canadian Tire. It's 20 amp, 120 volt. It's a ceramic fuse made specially for microwaves. Pretty straightforward. We have the fuse holder here, made for this fuse. Just take the fuse, center it over the fuse holder, make sure it's not too far one way or the other. Hold it at one end, push it down in there, and just like that, you've replaced the fuse. So again, we have to put it all back together. And if you're organized, you'll remember where you put all the screws. You remember how you took this cover off. So the microwave, as you remember, was sitting this way. And the cover has to kind of fold out this way. You push the top in first to engage the top of the cabinet to the front of the microwave. Just gently push it towards you, just a little bit, and then remember we have to push this in at the front and push it forward to engage the front of the microwave into the slides there to keep the cabinet in place. Might have it too far forward and not high enough. There we go. This side is on. You have to kind of lift it up high to get that dog to slip over there. Just like that. Make sure it's pressed forward, just like it was when you took it off. And the way you'll know how it's pushed in far enough is it should have come up nice and tight against the back of the microwave. Then all you have to do is put the screws back in around the perimeter. And then the one in the side, if we remember there. And then just tighten them all up with the screwdriver again. Okay, so now we have the cabinet back together again. I've got all the screws back in, and it's all put back together. The only thing is now, wow, we have a... That'll never do. So the best thing I found for that is just a cloth with some mild soap. Let's give it a wipe. And then come with a dry cloth right after. And that just shines that right up nice. Fingerprints all gone. So any of the exposed surfaces, yeah, you know what, even if it's not exposed, it's good housekeeping. Just wipe it all down. Then the wife doesn't complain when you say you fixed it, and she complains that you fixed it all right, but now she has to clean it. Happy wife, happy life, that's what I say. Here we go, this side here too. Get those fingerprints off of there. Excellent. Now I know it's very tempting to put the fuse in and then right away plug it in and make sure it works. Dangerous, don't do that. I would not recommend doing that. Please put it together and then plug it in to see if it works. Okay, now the next step, let's put it back in its little cubby hole there and see if it works. Okay, let's put it in the little cubby here. Cord, we'll plug it in and see what happens now. Wow, look at that. Welcome, it says. If you open the door, lo and behold, the lights are on in there. So what we have to do now, put it back together, the carrier ring, turntable. Make sure you get the parts of the turntable engaged in the little spinny thing there. And the next thing to do, of course, is set the time. I don't know how to do that. So let's see here. Let's just put a glass of water in here and see if it works. Look at that. It's back working again. So that's how you change the fuse in a microwave. I hope that was helpful for you. Join me again next time on How Do I Do? And if you like what you see, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks, have a great day.